Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Croatia backs India's fight against cross-border terrorism. Prime Minister Modi calls out global hypocrisy on terrorism at the G7 stage. And Baloch activists protest in London demand global intervention against Pakistan's war crimes. Let's begin the show. The news around Pakistan is tightening. From Europe to the international financial watchdogs, Islamabad's long-standing role in financing, sheltering and exporting terrorism is once again under global scrutiny. In a powerful diplomatic signal, Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenkovic has unequivocally backed India's stance against terrorism, calling it the biggest threat to global stability. His remarks come in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack, which left 26 dead, an attack India says was orchestrated by Pakistan-backed terrorists. Meanwhile, in a significant move, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, has broken its silence, stating that such attacks cannot occur without money and means to move funds. The implication is clear: Pakistan's terror financing network is back in focus.
In a clear message to those who shield and support terrorism, Croatia has extended not only condolences for the Pahalgam attack, but also unambiguous support to India's counter-terrorism response, Operation Sindoor. Prime Minister Andrej Plenkovic stated that Croatia fully understands and supports PM Modi's call for a united global front against terror, calling terrorism the biggest threat to global peace.
We have also discussed and expressed sorrow for the terrorist attack that happened in India, after which India had to react. And we also said that the global situation in terms of security is very volatile. So it is important to have the most influential actors worldwide to give their contribution to peace, de-escalate conflict, and to respect the rule of international law. We have understood very well the Indian Prime Minister's message on fighting against terrorism, because that is the biggest threat to global stability.
India's measured and precise retaliation through Operation Sindoor, widely believed to have struck Pakistan-backed terror camps, has found strong resonance across Croatia. From street-level conversations to diplomatic corridors, there is a growing awareness that India's fight is the world's fight.
When the Pahalgam episode happened, they were shocked. I got messages from a number of Croatians on my personal phone. They expect solidarity with us. And thereafter, India's measured and restrained response through Operation Sindoor was appreciated by all Croatians. If you talk to anybody on the street, you will find a Croatian endorsing India's approach. They are solidly with India, so they are reliable friends. That's where we have their support, which is required, global support we need to counter terrorism.
The bilateral engagement was not limited to counter-terrorism. India and Croatia signed several cooperation agreements in defense, nuclear energy, shipbuilding, digital infrastructure, and agriculture.
We have also agreed on future cooperation in all areas, from economy, cooperation in defense. I also told to Mr. Modi that Croatia will be increasing its defense spending in the future in line with the obligation of the NATO. The summit will be held in The Hague. So we will spend 3.5% of GDP plus 1.5% of spending on industry, but not only defense industry, but related activities as well. So in that regard, we want to strengthen cooperation in defense industry, nuclear energy, shipbuilding, information technology, because in IT, India is a global leader.
Backing India's stance further, the Financial Action Task Force, the global terror financing watchdog, issued a statement condemning the Pahalgam terror attack, saying, "Such brutal attacks cannot occur without money and the means to move funds between terrorist supporters." While FATF did not name any country directly, the subtext is unmistakable. India has already taken steps to flag Pakistan's role in funding terror operations, including urging FATF to reconsider Pakistan's removal from the grey list. This came days after India launched Operation Sindoor on May 7, targeting terror infrastructure across Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, sparking a brief but intense military standoff. As Croatia joins the growing chorus of nations backing India's anti-terror push, Pakistan's global credibility continues to collapse. Despite repeated denials, Islamabad has failed to dismantle the terror ecosystem operating freely within its borders, a point not just raised by India but now reinforced by the FATF's public remarks. With groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and others still operating from Pakistani soil and a long record of attacks in India, the evidence is overwhelming. Pakistan's plausible deniability narrative is crumbling under international pressure.
In a scathing rebuke of global hypocrisy on terrorism, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi used the G7 outreach platform to issue a forceful warning against selective approaches to violent extremism. Speaking just weeks after a brutal terrorist attack in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir, that killed 26 civilians, PM Modi made it clear: nations that sponsor terror must pay a price. His remarks coincided with the launch of India's decisive counterstrike, Operation Sindoor, targeting terror hideouts deep inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Here's the full story.
At a time when the world continues to juggle geopolitical interests and moral posturing, India has taken a stand that cuts through the hypocrisy. Speaking at the G7 outreach session in Canada, Prime Minister Narendra Modi issued a direct warning against the global community's selective approach towards terrorism. Prime Minister Modi's remarks at the G7 outreach session were a sharp indictment of the international community's inconsistent stance on terrorism. While refraining from naming Pakistan directly, the subtext of his words left little doubt. Modi described the April 22 Pahalgam terror attack as not just an act of violence against India, but an attack on humanity and a brutal reminder of what he termed the soul, identity and dignity of every Indian. Standing firm, Modi asserted that there is no place for double standards on terrorism and issued a strong call for a consistent and a unified global approach. He also spoke on behalf of the Global South, pointing out that nations in Asia, Africa and Latin America bear the brunt of such instability, created and perpetuated by powers that thrive on proxy warfare and militant exports.
I believe Prime Minister's speech at the G7 was very pertinent, very important, and it got the message across very clearly regarding double standards which prevail the worldwide over on the issue of terrorism. World powers are listening without doubt and listening more to India and Prime Minister Modi. Couple of reasons. One, of course, India's growing heft and role in world affairs. The impact of India's development for the overall development of the planet Earth, India's contributions, the largest population on planet Earth. So world leaders are now definitely listening. They have been listening, but they're listening more. And in fact, after Operation Sindoor, I would say they're listening even more, they're even more alert.
India's response to the Pahalgam massacre was not delayed diplomacy, it was decisive action. In response to the April 22 Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 civilians, India launched Operation Sindoor on the night of May 6 to 7th. The operation targeted 9 terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, hitting facilities run by groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba with backing from the Pakistani military. India's strikes were precise and non-escalatory, focused solely on dismantling terror infrastructure. Following limited Pakistani retaliation through drone attacks and shelling along the LOC, Indian forces responded strongly, damaging key Pakistani military bases. The swift and decisive action forced Pakistan to seek de-escalation through military back channels. Amid this unfolding crisis, US President Donald Trump claimed that the United States had played a central role in mediating a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. The narrative, however, did not match the facts. Prime Minister Modi, in a phone call with President Trump on the sidelines of the G7 summit, set the record straight. The Prime Minister briefed Trump on Operation Sindoor, outlining that the targets were limited strictly to terror camps and that India had used no external negotiation or third-party intervention before or after its action.
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को स्पष्ट रूप से कहा कि इस पूरे घटनाक्रम के दौरान कभी भी किसी भी स्तर पर भारत अमेरिका ट्रेड डील या अमेरिका द्वारा भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच मध्यस्थता जैसे विषयों पर बात नहीं हुई थी। सैन्य कार्रवाई रोकने की बात सीधे भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच दोनों सेनाओं की एग्जिस्टिंग चैनल्स के माध्यम से हुई थी और पाकिस्तान के ही आग्रह पर हुई थी। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने जोर देकर कहा कि भारत ने न तो कभी मध्यस्थता स्वीकार की थी, न करता है और ना ही कभी करेगा। इस विषय पर भारत में पूर्ण रूप से राजनीतिक एकमत है।
As India asserts its right to defend its people and borders, Pakistan continues to wear the mask of a victim, even as its own hands remain stained with the blood of countless terror plots. From orchestrating attacks in Kashmir to sheltering UN-designated terrorists, Pakistan's military regime has shown no intent to change course. But unlike the past, its actions are now increasingly under global scrutiny. The backfiring of its retaliatory strikes, the exposure of its drone capabilities, and its forced appeals for de-escalation reflect the weakened state of Pakistan's military and diplomatic credibility. Meanwhile, India has emerged as a stabilizing force in the region, engaging global powers on its terms, securing support from the US, and making it clear that any threat to Indian lives will be met with a proportionate and punishing response.
In a powerful display of resistance against Pakistan's brutal and oppressive tactics, Baloch activists and supporters of the Baloch National Movement gathered outside the British Prime Minister's residence in London. The protest marked the 16th anniversary of the enforced disappearance of Zakir Majid Baloch, a student leader abducted by Pakistani forces in 2009. The demonstration was not just about one man. It was a loud and clear cry for justice for thousands who have been forcibly disappeared in Pakistan's restive Balochistan province.
Carrying banners reading "Release Zakir Majid," "End Enforced Disappearances," and "Justice for the Forcibly Disappeared," protesters gathered outside 10 Downing Street in London. They demanded the British government and the international community break their silence on Pakistan's state-sponsored atrocities in Balochistan. The protest was led by the Baloch National Movement, which has consistently highlighted the systematic persecution of Baloch people by Pakistan's security apparatus. Among the speakers was Raja Bibi, the mother of Zakir Majid Baloch, who has spent 16 painful years waiting for her son. She declared that justice in Pakistan is a dead end, and it was the silence of the world that has forced her into exile. Her voice trembled not just for her son, but for an entire generation of disappeared Baloch youth.
He came with a vision for the people of Balochistan, and onwards from that day, he was abducted. Today, we are over here for my leader, for your leader, that is Zakir Majid Baloch. He was abducted on 8th of June 2009, and today 16 years have been completed. He is in the torture cells of Pakistan. He is under torture over there for 16 years, and a mother standing with me. She is feeling the same torture, the same pain for 16 years. Two people together, one son and second the mother, the family members are under a torture for 16 years.
The protest exposed how enforced disappearances are no longer individual cases, but part of Pakistan's systematic strategy of collective punishment. Men, women, and even elderly citizens are abducted, many of them without any political affiliations. According to Pank, the human rights wing of the BNM, 128 Baloch were forcibly disappeared in May 2025 alone. 27 extrajudicial killings, 35 torture victims, all in just 1 month. This is not counter-terrorism, this is ethnic cleansing, and the world continues to look the other way.
Today, Baloch women, men, children are being abducted, and not only those people, they are political active, they are being abducted. Along with them, those people, their family members are in politics. As a collective punishment, their family members are being abducted, arrested, and being tortured, even being killed. Today, Baloch women are being abducted. A very big example, that is Majbeen Baloch. She was abducted, and more than a week, no one knows about her whereabouts, where she is. Like that, Ustad Wahid Kambar, an old man, he was abducted and no one knows about his whereabouts. So it's a kind of collective punishment for the Baloch nation they are facing.
Despite repeated denials by Islamabad, countless global media investigations have exposed the Pakistani military's role in dumping bodies of Baloch activists, many showing signs of torture on roadsides and in mass graves. Victims are often falsely branded as terrorists or killed in staged encounters. Speakers like Master Manzoor Baloch, Hassan Dost Baloch, and Niaz Baloch collectively condemned Pakistan's war crimes and urged the UK and UN to act. They reminded the West that silence is complicity and that inaction only emboldens regimes like Islamabad's to expand its brutality.
There are witnesses, there are reports that those people were abducted years and years ago, and after that, then they were killed. So today, it is the time for the British government, for rest of the world, to come forward and ask Pakistan that where are the abducted people? Who is responsible for killing the innocent people? They should ask, where is Zakir Jan? Our mother is here, he's missing for 16 years. If this silence continues, a genocide people have seen in history, So the same genocide which is going on in Balochistan, the level will increase day by day, which is increasing.
For decades, Pakistan has looted Balochistan's resources while denying its people basic rights. Under projects like CPEC, minerals and energy are extracted for Chinese and Punjabi interests. The locals, displaced, unemployed, and labeled terrorists for resisting exploitation. What is unfolding is not just a human rights crisis, it is a slow genocide. The wealth of Balochistan is looted, its people silenced.
Moving on. Bangladesh stands at a political tipping point as interim leader Muhammad Yunus returns from a failed UK visit, snubbed by Prime Minister Keir Starmer and met with massive diaspora protests in London. At home, his government faces growing backlash over delayed elections, rising human rights violations, and collapsing public trust. Once seen as a transitional figure, Yunus is now accused of partisanship and authoritarian drift. As the crisis deepens, the question looms large. Is Bangladesh still on the path to democracy or drifting away from it? As Bangladesh grapples with political uncertainty, Interim Chief Advisor Muhammad Yunus returned this week from what many are calling a disastrous visit to the United Kingdom. The trip, aimed at garnering international support and financial cooperation to address alleged corruption by the previous administration, ended without any tangible success. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer declined to meet Yunus, signalling diplomatic disengagement. This snub was compounded by scenes of chaos outside the Dorchester Hotel in London, where Yunus was greeted by large-scale protests led by British Bangladeshis.
Today, Professor Dr. Muhammad Yunus of the interim government came to London, and when he arrived at his hotel, the Dorchester, at 7:30 in the morning, there were more than 1,000 protesters who were comprising from all different walks of life from the Bangladeshi diaspora here in the UK, including Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, atheists, members of the third gender, the LGBT community. So everybody in one voice, they raised the secularism demand regardless of their color, creed or religion, and everybody was very angry and very furious.
Back in Dhaka, criticism of the interim administration continues to grow. Yunus' government, formed in the wake of Sheikh Hasina's departure, has been accused of failing to maintain law and order and reneging on its promises of fair and inclusive elections. Moreover, human rights groups have flagged increasing cases of unlawful detentions, suppression of press freedoms, and worsening conditions for women and minorities.
His administration has clearly failed to not only maintain law and order, they have backtracked on the promise to create the very free and fair, inclusive elections in Bangladesh. That date has been slipping. The situation on women's safety, children and minorities has deteriorated, and the country has really plummeted in those instances. Unlawful arrests of journalists. It is also reported almost 100 MPs from the previous government are now in custody on fake or bogus cases, which appears not to have gone through due process when they were arrested.
Further complicating matters, Yunus has now alienated even his initial political supporters. The hardline Jamaat-e-Islami and the newly formed National Citizen Party, both of whom backed the original plan to hold elections in April, have accused him of political bias. Their anger comes after Yunus and the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party reportedly reached a preliminary deal to move elections forward to February, prompting accusations of partisanship and betrayal. As Bangladesh slips deeper into political turmoil, the international community watches with growing concern. What began as a promise of reform has turned into a cloud of confusion, delayed elections, and mounting civil unrest. With institutions weakened and public trust eroding by the day, the path forward remains uncertain. For millions of Bangladeshis at home and abroad, the question now is not just when democracy will return, but if it ever truly will. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.